Welcome to episode 27 of Scorned by Muses. Make the past the future again. After being shuttered for 2 years, the new museum reopened in March 2026 with an $80 million expansion designed by OMA, the legendary architecture firm founded by Rem Koolhaas. To go along with the expansion, the museum is putting on a massive exhibition titled New Humans, Memories of the Future. The exhibition features 200 artists whose work spans from the late 19th century to the present. The new museum calls it, quote, an exploration of artists' enduring preoccupation with what it means to be human in the face of sweeping technological changes. Yet the subtitle of the show, Memories of the Future, reveals something important about our contemporary sensibility. We conjure the future not as the dream of something yet to come, but rather as the memory of what tomorrow once promised. We must go back to the past to see the future. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is also looking to the past in search of an aesthetic for the future.
The White House says Austin's federal courthouse doesn't look good. That's according to a White House draft called Make Federal Buildings Great Again. The order wants all federal buildings to look like Republican Rome or Democratic Athens.
The president's Make Federal Architecture Beautiful Again executive order, signed in late 2025, stipulates that the construction of all new federal public buildings should adhere to the classical architecture of ancient Athens and Rome. And the administration, through the National Endowment for the Humanities, has recently awarded a $2 million grant to a tiny art school in New York called the Grand Central Atelier, which is focused on classical painting and sculpture. The school's founder, Jacob Collins, thinks that paintings turn away from classicism and towards modernism in the 1860s was a mistake. He's determined to find a way to correct that mistake.
I wanted to try to make painting that had that crystalline, infinite beauty of Renaissance art.
In this episode, we'll look at these two attempts to deal with a deeply dissatisfying present. One which comes out of an avant-gardist envisioning of the future, and the other which comes out of an attempt to return to a vital tradition, which is in danger of being lost. We'll sit down with Shohei Shigematsu, the architect who designed the new museum expansion, and we chat with Jacob Collins, an artist and founder of the Grand Central Atelier. Stay tuned. Trump's executive order regarding classical architecture is just the latest utterance in a long debate which has animated conversations in architecture for 50 years. By the middle of the 20th century, the dream which was put forward by the pioneers of modernist architecture like Le Corbusier and Walter Gropius in the 1920s had failed to materialize. The modernist buildings which came to dominate college campuses, urban business districts, and state capitals were regarded by the public as ugly and oppressive. This is in part because although the builders adopted some of the architectural principles of the modernists, such as dispensing with ornament and a demand that form follow function, these tenets were applied without the requisite social transformation, which would have allowed the radical architectural break to liberate humanity from the dead weight of old traditions. The cold austerity of modernism instead became the signature architectural style which Hollywood used for Bond villains and nefarious corporations.
You have a problem with authority, Mr. Anderson.
By the 1970s, some architects began a revolt against modernism. This revolt, marshaled under the banner of postmodernism, was two-pronged. One prong rejected modernism's rationalist simplicity via a return to ornamentation and an embrace of classical and vernacular forms, albeit tinged with irony. The architect Bernard Tschumi described it as making Doric temple forms out of plywood. The other prong, which embraced the idea of deconstruction, explicitly rejected this backwards-looking move. Deconstruction maintained modernism's rejection of ornament and its attempt to radically break with the past, while treating modernism itself as the past from which it must break. Rem Koolhaas and his firm OMA were among the few architects, including Frank Gehry and Constantino Dardi, whose entries into the postmodernist 1980 Venice Biennale did not employ references to classical architecture. Koolhaas and OMA became key players in a progressive rather than regressive break with modernism. OMA won several important commissions in the 1990s and early 2000s, including the Seattle Central Library, the Casa de Musica in Portugal, the Educatorium at the University of Utrecht in the Netherlands, and the Prada Epicenter in New York City. Alongside other influential architects like Peter Eisenman, Daniel Libeskind, and Frank Gehry, OMA defined how important architecture was supposed to look at the turn of the millennium. The rational functionalism and simple, elegant geometries of the early 20th century were distorted and deconstructed in favor of bold interventions into space and a breaking of the oppressive modernist grid. Flying beams and clashing geometric planes, which were not decorative ornament in the classical sense, but were doing something which was beyond mere utility. Thus, the golden rules of modernist design, like form follows function and truth to materials, were bent or broken. The master modernist Mies van der Rohe once said that it's better to be good than to be original. The deconstructionists have had a tendency to prioritize the latter over the former, but with their new building here in Lower Manhattan, I'm not sure that OMA has accomplished either. For this only being like 7 weeks old, it's really dirty. You know, the floors. I mean, this as a choice, I mean, it's a nice material gesture, but these little like Lego holes are gonna get so dirty. It's impossible to clean. This is nice. The mesh is nice though. Like you can see the like piping and stuff inside here. You know, it says there's a video. Well, where is it? There's a trash can in the way. Is it closed off or is there just a trash can in the way? It doesn't say it's closed, there's just a trash can in the way. Should we go all the way up to the top though?
Yeah, let's take the elevator.
And work our way down? Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, maybe this is what they mean by the video. The video is in the elevator. But why don't they put the plaque in here? Look at this. This whole thing's moving.
Oh my god. You very good? Very good? Holy shit. The screen is moving?
The whole panel is moving, yeah. Okay, this is the ground floor. OMA's new addition is impressive, and the showpiece stairwell adds much-needed open space and general flow to the museum experience. But we still had difficulty finding our way around, which probably has more to do with the museum's use of the building than the building itself. Maybe not, I don't know.
Maybe we can't go.
Or maybe it's over there.
Oh, maybe it's... Yep. There's a big crack.
Oh shit.
It's falling apart, bro.
It wasn't clear from any maps or signage on which floor the exhibition began. We discovered through trial and error that it begins on the second floor. This is a nice one, though. It's kind of interesting. I hate these though. This is my least favorite kind of art ever. Like, what is this shit? It's grotesquely ugly. Like the worst fucking shit ever. I gotta say, it's a pretty ambitious show. You know, it's really staking a claim to something. It's also a very noisy show. There's a lot of videos going on, so the audio is probably gonna be totally shit.
I'm so overstimulated.
Yeah, there's also way too many people in here right now. I'd say this is by far the best show that I've seen at the new museum. It's actually kind of an incredible show.
Hi.
Unfortunately, there's no recording in the galleries.
Oh,
unless
okay.
It's pre-approved.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay, but cell phone's okay?
You can do cell phone, but there's no recording in galleries. It's just photography is allowed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Our first attempt to review the show was foiled by this pesky security guard, so we emailed the PR office and got permission to come back for a second go. The show's narrative is not an explicit historical chronology. Though the historical themes are certainly there, the core narrative hews closer to a biological chronology of gestation, growth, transformation, and maturation. Dark, bubbly, and womb-like, the first gallery carries the motif of birth across its works. But it's not a tender portrait of mother and child, rather a biomechanical nativity where man and machine fuse in cyborgian grotesqueries. Works from the early 20th century by Duchamp, Picabia, and Brancusi hang alongside works from the early 21st. Simon Denny's sculpture based on an Amazon factory workstation prototype and Jeremy Deller's Motorola wearable strapped to a disembodied hand objectify the fraught relationship between the human and its machine appendages. Or is it rather the machine and its human appendages? On the opposite wall, we have L. Lissitzky's lithographs depicting stage designs and costume ideas for Victory Over the Sun, the Russian futurist opera in which the protagonists capture the sun in order to declare the supremacy of humanity over nature. Lissitzky's New Man is the arch symbol of a moment filled with the revolutionary optimism that industrial society would free man from toil. Separated from Lissitzky's lithographs by a century of political regression, Denny and Deller's works present an inverted image. Their machines enslave rather than liberate. The contradiction deepens as the show proceeds. The machine appears alternatingly as a means of either domination or liberation. Bodies and machines clash, combine, and embrace. Technophilia and technophobia dance a dialectical waltz across the second-floor galleries. Upstairs, the tone changes. There's more painting, more color, and more raw expression. There's also a focus on artists from the global south with works from African, South American, and Southeast Asian artists. Explicit references to technology fall away to be replaced with tortured interiority and brute animalistic violence. We see a psyche torn apart by the pull of the old and the tug of the new. This gallery, with its blood-red walls, condenses many works from MoMA's 1959 exhibition, New Images of Man. It's a primal scream against the dehumanization of the post-World War II society of total administration. If we want to hold to our biological chronology, this floor is menstrual. filled with the pubescent angst of uncertainty and change. It's a hormonal march from childhood to maturity. Finally, we ascend from the depths of the tortured pubescence of the 20th century soul into the airy, brightly lit, double-height galleries of the fourth floor, which give one the feeling of a World's Fair or a children's science museum. Architectural visions of a future city, some pragmatic and others whimsical, sprawl out beneath floating cyborgs, friendly, jellyfish-like automatons with none of the threatening character of a surveillance drone. The pink carpet and cathedral ceilings are enough to give one the strength to leap over the uncanny valley and love these robots. Even E.T., stripped of his silicone coverings, manages to charm. Everyone in the gallery seems delighted to be there and to see themselves reflected in the humanistic glow of these friendly cyborgs. In an age dominated by anxieties over artificial intelligence, we are nostalgic for a time where robots could be just a friendly sidekick. That's exactly the vision that this Hall of Robots projects. But the contradiction which the show sets up on the first two floors seems too easily resolved here. It concludes with a slick and friendly end-of-history Y2K optimism, which says that the only thing the new millennium will bring is better PlayStation graphics and good times for all. I appreciate the optimism in a moment of profound pessimism, but with a show that paints with such a broad historical brush, one would hope that a 2026 vision of the future could also be incorporated, no matter how dystopian. It seems the problem, as mentioned earlier, is stated in the very title of the show. Memories of the future means that the future lies in the past.
All right, let's go.
We're going to head now to the New York offices of OMA, the firm responsible for this building, to talk to the project's lead architect Shohei Shigematsu about the building and about OMA's design philosophy. This is OMA take one. You look great, Shohei.
Thank you. I'm just checking.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
OMA, I think, was founded during a pivotal sort of inflection point in the history of architecture. I think it was really kind of defining itself in a lot of ways against modernism, which had been the dominant style of the time. And I know you joined the firm in 1998 and then later became head of this office in 2006. I think you really helped, or one of the main figures that shepherded the firm through that period where it was no longer in this oppositional outsider role against modernism, but kind of became the mainstream itself, right? And so I was wondering, looking back on that history, do you think that this departure from modernism and this sort of trajectory was a success? And what do you think about the state of architecture today in general?
Very difficult question from the very beginning. Let me warm up first.
Yeah.
Yeah. The departure from modernism, I don't know. For me, my understanding...
To hear what Shohei sounds like once he's warmed up, you can watch the full-length, uncensored version of this episode at patreon.com/The Yearbook Committee. Here's a taste of what you'll see.
The word future is becoming more and more obsolete. I think architects had withdrawn from that role for a while. Let's make everything green. Politically correct thing after another. For me, the present is the future. I think young people don't even talk about those things.
In another part of the city, about a 45-minute subway ride away in Ridgewood, Queens, the artists and instructors at the Grand Central Atelier are engaged in a different task. Their task is one that seems to align with the aesthetic goals of the current Trump administration, which canceled nearly all of the arts grants which had been previously approved during the Biden term. The Grand Central Atelier was handpicked by the National Endowment for the Humanities to receive an unusually large sum of $2 million. Typically, most grants are under $1 million. I reached out to the National Endowment for the Humanities requesting a comment as to why GCA was chosen as a recipient and why the grant was unusually large. A public affairs specialist named Stacy told me, "At this time, NEH is quite understaffed in its program offices, and we don't have the bandwidth to accommodate this."
The light washes across, so it traverses this whole side of the arch of the nasal bone, and it joins here. So I think because it's surrounded by all these dark things, you want to flip it up. Yeah. But it's like you got to split. You've got to separate the optical match from the sculpturally constructed. Yeah.
The person who's 18 who comes here and wants simply to try to paint like Anders Zorn or Sorolla or some 19th century master, their analogous figure of 40, 50 years ago would have very likely been showing up to New York to study with Hans Hofmann. So that just feels like that. Even if it's not happening on an individual young person by young person case. The people who are coming here not having engaged with the contemporary art world are part of the same phenomenon as the ones who did, if that makes any sense. I personally...
To hear the rest of the interview with Jacob, you can watch the full-length, uncensored version of this episode at patreon.com/The Yearbook Committee. Here's a taste of what you'll see.
I didn't want to make sloppy, murky painting. You're going to get mad when they say that the thing that you love is irrelevant and morally wrong. I can't judge other people's moral frame, but I can certainly feel like I want to defend mine, that there's a beauty that you're getting to participate in that seems like that seems like a good. And then if that good is under assault by...
I want to be very careful here. I am not by any means suggesting that the instructors or students at the Atelier are politically aligned with Trumpism. But clearly the administration sees something valuable in what they are doing. The aesthetic affinity for classicism is worth investigating because, as Collins has already suggested, that affinity does often coincide with certain moral or political oughts, and it's a phenomenon that often occurs during moments of crisis. Donald Trump is one of the only American presidents in recent history who has any aesthetic vision to speak of. His aesthetics may be brash, gaudy, and over the top, but he understands the power of an image. There is an element of his aesthetics which recalls Nazism, particularly the emphasis on classicism. For example, Hitler's plan for the redesign of post-war Berlin included a massive dome inspired by Hadrian's Pantheon in Rome. The Nazis also sponsored sculptors like Arno Breker, who worked in a triumphant neoclassical style, and denigrated modernist art that depicted abstract and distorted human forms. The Nazis famously exhibited these works in their degenerate art exhibition. Walter Benjamin said that fascism is the aestheticization of politics. But before we take this analogy too far, I want to say that it should be clear to anyone who has studied the history of fascism that Trump is not a fascist, and the use of the term to describe him as such is Democratic Party propaganda.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
Before you go running to the comments, I say this not as an endorsement of Trump. We simply need to be clear about what's happening, and to call him a fascist obscures the truth.
I know how unpopular contemporary architecture or modernist architecture is in general to the public. And there is something about, of course, those type of architecture that he's referring to. There was a shared aesthetical style then, and a lot of people spend a lot of money and technique to make those happen. In that kind of system or that kind of environment, I actually would love to, in that kind of framework where the whole society is okay to actually, spend so much money and so share a kind of level of aesthetics and crafts and everything to make those important buildings happen. If we get that commission, we will probably, reinterpret what those styles are, and then not literally copying the kind of, past style, but deliver something that is also could represent the current moment. But I mean, something like that is happening a lot in many places, So maybe it's shocking for people in US, but I think certain regime, certain city demands a certain classical style to be reproduced for the sake of control, but also for scenery. And sometimes you need to also deal with that. But of course, what he's saying in this country is a little bit shocking.
What is interesting about the neoclassicism of Trump is that it is a repetition of earlier moments of neoclassicism. The bourgeois revolutionary moment of the late 18th and early 19th century employed Greek and Roman motifs as a way to break with the oppressive medieval past and to inhabit the aesthetics of the lost glory of the ancient republic. The disintegration and decadence of the bourgeois revolution over the course of the 19th and 20th centuries gave rise to eclecticism and an anarchic proliferation of styles and traditions. The fascists responded to the cultural and aesthetic confusion brought on by the global circulation of capital by reaching backwards to a lost authenticity and wholeness against this confusing muddle. Their romantic anti-capitalism drew on the aesthetics of the great European traditions of the ancient past.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, will be treated as Victory in Europe Day.
After World War II, the defeat of the fascists cleared the way for a modernist homogenization of architecture, spurred on by global capitalism and the expansion of free trade.
Barbara, come here. Let's see the sights.
The 1950s and 60s saw a high point of the international style. Glass and steel towers became the default mode of new buildings erected in New York, Chicago, London, Berlin, Taiwan, Lagos, and Sao Paulo.
People who want to work but can't find jobs are part of today's other bad economic news. The unemployment rate soared to 8.2% nationwide last month, and it rose to an even higher figure here in California. A statewide jobless rate of 9.3%.
As the post-war boom years gave way to high inflation and stagnant growth in the 1970s, the ubiquity and sterility of the international style came under attack by the two-pronged fork of postmodernism, which we spoke about earlier. The reactionary prong employed an irony-tinged take on neoclassicism, while the more progressive prong maintained the glass and steel boxes of the international style, but with an unsettling twist, exemplified in the work of OMA. each neoclassical moment has been spurred on by a moment of crisis and change. The breakdown of the feudal order and the ascendancy of the bourgeois order in the 18th and 19th centuries. The crisis of the bourgeois order in the First World War and the fascist response in the 20th century. The faltering of the post-World War II Keynesian welfare state and the rise of neoliberalism in the 1970s. Today, we have the crisis of neoliberalism and the populist cry to make America great again. Aesthetically, what this means is that we have accumulated 80 years of modernist administration buildings and postmodernist cultural buildings. Both seem anti-humanist to the public today. Trump wants a return to the glory of the past to create a vision for the future. There's no question that art and architecture are stuck in the paradigms of the late 20th century. Contemporary art today seems to be largely irrelevant to the culture at large, and the Silicon Valley figures who are driving today's economy have little to no interest in contemporary art, despite the art establishment's best efforts to court them. Yet there remains a widely expressed need and desire to aesthetically objectify our moment in ways that are meaningful. Will a return to the great traditions of the past allow us to break free of this impasse? The interesting thing to consider is that it's actually plausible. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.